So February, the month of love, Valentine's Day, but I'm single. So I live vicariously through all the romance books that I've read and their relationships, and these are all the books that I've read in February 2022. So February, I read romance books only. I kind of forgot how much I love romance books. I mean, I always knew that I love romance books, but I didn't know that I'm obsessed with them because I've managed to have one of my best reading month ever in February. I managed to finish 12 books and none of them are audiobooks. If you watch my January wrap-up, you'll know that the last book I've read in January are part of the Off-Campus and Briar U series. So February started off with me continuing that. I read the last 3 books from Briar U, which is The Risk, The Play, The Dare from L. Kennedy. In general, as a series, I have to say I still prefer Off-Campus. There's just something about the friendship of the main male character in those books, Garrett, Logan, Dean, and Tucker, that I really adore. But in this Briar U series, we don't get that friendship, at least not in the same level as the friendship within the Off-Campus series. So yeah, for February, we started off really strong with The Risk, my favorite from Briar U series. It's about Jake Connolly and Brenna Jensen. You heard it right, Brenna Jensen. Coach Jensen. She is the daughter of Coach Jensen, the coach of the Briar hockey team. And this time, we got something really interesting because her love interest is Jake Connolly, the captain of the enemy team from Harvard University, if I'm not mistaken. They are the main rival team for this year's championship, but also the coach of Harvard have some deep-rooted bad blood with Coach Jensen. So overall, Brenna having a relationship with Jake Connolly is just a dangerous territory. So the trope in this book, we obviously have a forbidden love, secret relationship, a little bit of hate to love from Brenna's side. I think not necessarily hate to love, but more like Brenna have an attraction towards Jake, but she tried to push her feelings aside because she knows that it is a dangerous territory to get into. But Jake, even though he never got into a serious relationship before, his focus is solely on his career as a hockey player. But for whatever reason, there's something about Brenna that really caught his attention. We also have a little bit of a fake date because this story started off with Brenna ask Jake to have a fake date with her, but Jake tell her that he will go into this fake date with her with one condition. For a fake date, he wants to have a real one with her. So their relationship started from there. We also see a lot of backstory of Brenna's past, what made her relationship with Coach Jensen become kind of strained, which is one of the main reasons I love this series. Even though the romance story is very lovely and interesting, there's also always another heartbreaking, difficult storyline. The way they deal with them together as a couple but also individually is just very lovely to read. I feel like each of these couple really helps each other out, bring the best out of each other, lift each other up. I really like Brenna's character. She's just such a very strong, fiery, confident character. I think that's also one of the reasons why Jake interested in her, because she's not afraid to speak her mind. She's one of the only people who are able to stand up to Jake and not pine and whine over him like other girls that he met before. And Jake is quite a lovable character. He reminds me a lot of Garrett's character actually, and I love their banter so much. And as much as I love the off-campus house, I kind of like the change of scenery in this book. It's quite refreshing after spending 5 books in a row in the same house. We also got to tackle on some important topics in regards sexism within the sport industry, how women in sport are still very much overlooked, treated very badly and unfairly. Just like any other books from this series, make sure to check out the trigger warning. There are quite a few. But yeah, like I said, one of my favorite from Briar U series, which is why I gave it 5 stars. Next is the third book from Briar U series called The Play. This book we have a friends to lovers story within Hunter, Davenport, and Demi Davis. I'm so happy we finally get to Hunter's book after all the things that he's gone through in book 1 and 2. We see a lot of him on the sideline struggling basically after what happened in the first book, which still makes me mad, and the repercussion of that, the way he trying to numb his pain and all that in the second book is not very healthy, and it's just very heartbreaking to see. So I'm super happy to see him finally have his moment and find love in the third one, and I wasn't let down in any way. After what happened in the first 2 books, we get into the new year as Hunter becoming the captain of the hockey team, and he pledged himself celibate for the rest of the year. He's not going to do anything stupid. He will be very responsible. He pretty much said no to any hookups and all of that. But in one of his class, he got paired for a semester project with a very smart, sassy, a very good looking girl called Demi Davis that he immediately find attractive. But lucky for Hunter, she actually have a boyfriend. So that's like a big no territory for him. That made things easier for him to do this project with her, until one day Demi and her boyfriend break up, and Hunter is stuck between keeping his promise, not wanting to jeopardize his friendship with Demi because they actually became such good friends. And I do think they have such great chemistry together. Their banter with each other are super fun, and their romance I think is paced beautifully with enough angst and anticipation, but they also didn't drag the relationship too long. And we also get to see a completely different side of Hunter's character, which is also one of the main attraction from this whole entire series for me personally. We see the main characters differently from the previous books, but once we get into their story, there's always more to their character than meets the eyes. They always have more depth to them. And also one of the main funny attraction from this book is the new pet or mascot for their team called Pablo. At first I was like, why are we talking about this? This is so random and weird and like not important at all, while it doesn't really add anything to the main storyline. This side storyline is what makes this book so much funnier and much more enjoyable. So we also get to see the whole entire team's relationship through all the events that includes these so-called pets, and also Hollis and Rupi. They're just very funny and very weird, but you just cannot not laugh when they appear. Next book is the last book from Briar U series called The Dare. It's between Connor and Taylor. Connor is the new student from West Coast, very much a surfer, hot type of good looking, you know. He has a very easygoing nature. It seems like nothing phases him. He's charming, kind, and very much loyal. One time only hookups is very much his thing, until one night he got really bored because it seems like everyone is trying to be with him without actually making an effort getting to know him as a person, and that makes him really bored with his social life at the moment, until one night a very shy, insecure, unpretentious girl named Taylor come up to him and ask him for help. Someone just dared her to hook up with Connor, but she was very much upfront with him about this dare, and he was really taken aback. Wow, this is new, this is different. So he ended up helping her, and instead of hooking up, they actually spent hours and hours all night talking, joking, and have an honest conversation about just a lot of random stuff. And Connor really liked that, but Taylor is sure that nothing will come out of this one-time thing, because there's no way a guy like Connor would ever like a girl like Taylor. She's like very insecure with herself, especially about her appearance, her weight. She also don't have a lot of experience in love and relationship. But a couple days later, Connor overheard people gossiping about Taylor and commenting some awful stuff about her, and that really bothered him for some reason. And for someone who never let anything phases him, that's very much new territory for him. He ends up blurting out that he's actually dating Taylor. A lot of things happen from there, so we have an actual fake date trope in this book. In between this crazy fake relationship, they actually build a connection. They also having fun with one another, and we also get to see them help each other dealing with their own insecurities, because turns out Connor also have a lot of deep insecurities within him, and I just love seeing both of them slowly but surely believe in themselves and see them in the way the other characters see them. And that's, I think, is quite a different dynamic. While I adore every single one of them, a lot of them are usually quite confident. Even when they're quirky and different, they're always so sure of themselves, but this time our main character is not, and I think that's refreshing to see within this universe. And also with Connor, when we think someone very, very confident, turns out they still have their own insecurities and problems. The ending of this book is not very satisfying as a conclusion of the whole entire series, but other than that, I really enjoy this book. The next book is a book from Penelope Douglas, and she's one of the authors that I really want to get into in 2022, so I'm glad I finally did. Birthday Girl. Surprisingly, I really like the book. I love this book actually. I gave it 5 stars. I didn't think I will like this book because it is touched on quite a taboo topic. It is an age gap, forbidden romance between a 19-year-old girl and a 38-year-old man who are actually the father of her boyfriend. But despite all of that, surprisingly, the love story is very lovely and very angsty. So the main character, Jordan, one night of her birthday, she went to see her favorite 80s movie, and while in the dark, she actually met with this guy. There's an undeniable connection there, but not long after, once they step out of the movie, they found out that he is actually the father of her boyfriend, and her boyfriend just got into a problem that caused Jordan and her boyfriend get kicked out of their apartment, and they ended up living in Pike's house. It got really weird because obviously they have a connection. Cole, the boyfriend, doesn't know, so there's a forced proximity involved. Cole, who had a very strained relationship with his father, just kept going out, partying, coming home very late, rarely give any attention to Jordan, so Jordan ended up spending more and more time with Pike. The one thing that made me feel okay with seeing them together is they're not trying to glorify this age gap. Their age gap actually is the one thing that made them hesitant to pursue their relationship. I just want to root for them at the same time, even though I know this is wrong because I've seen the way they interact with each other. Pike, who has never been comfortable talking with people, he's a very private person, but with Jordan, he felt like he can always open up. He's able to let his guards down. They made each other feel very comfortable and appreciated. They both made each other feel understood and wanted, which is very much wrong but also very right. And what Penelope did with this character, she made me see them as human. It's obvious that they are two good people with good intentions who got caught in such an unfortunate situation, and most importantly, none of them are trying to take advantage out of the other person. That's like one of the main thing that I don't like with the huge age gap. Usually one or both people in the relationship are trying to manipulate the other person, trying to take advantage of the other ones, or if the relationship or the age gap built with only lust, creepiness and toxicity involved, or if the person used the age gap as the kings of the relationship or something like that, made me really uncomfortable. This kind of challenge my opinion and point of view. I have to try to open my mind, even though in most cases I don't agree with age gap. There are always gonna be rare cases like this that are just right and different, and we really have to judge every relationship case by case. You know, not every single relationship are toxic when age gap is involved, you know, and this is one of the example of that, I think. But also, there's one thing that keeps bugging my mind. I need to know if they ever have a talk about the loofah and his new tattoo, because they don't mention it ever again. Am I the only one who thinks about that, or am I just weird? But yeah, 5 stars from me. Next, The Legacy by L. Kennedy, which is considered the 5th book of the Off-Campus series, a collection of novella, short stories about where all the 4 couple from the Off-Campus series are now. It's actually set right after the 4th book from Briar U series takes place. I quite enjoy this. I know a lot of people hate this book. I don't, but I know why a lot of people quite disappointed with this one. So what I like from this is just to see all of them all together again. And like I said, as much as I love the Briar U series, nothing can beat the friendship between Garrett, Logan, Dean, and Tucker. Their banter when they're together are just always so funny and entertaining, and seeing them still best friends after 3, 4, 5 years after they graduated, have a very different life, live in different cities kind of, and just very busy, just makes me so happy. It's very nostalgic, quite emotional as well. And I just read all the books like 2 weeks prior to this one, so I cannot imagine how exciting it is for people and all of you guys who read the Off-Campus series years before this book came out. Each of them are in quite different stages in their life and in their relationship. Each stories have their own up and downs. It's not really a conclusion, which is why a lot of people have problems with it, I guess. But that's actually one of the main thing I like this book, because each feels like a full story. I love seeing the drama that happen in each of their relationship, and each story just continuously flow seamlessly to the other couple's storyline, which I like. But I do think each stories, especially the end kind of abruptly, and I just wish there were more of it, especially for Garrett and Hannah's relationship. I don't know what happened there. It left me with a lot of questions, and I just want to know more, and we don't get to see them together again in the end. We see them all together like in the middle of the book, but kind of wish that we still get an extra epilogue with all of them together instead of just Garrett's story that still left me with a lot of questions, you know? I feel kind of satisfied with where Logan and Tucker's relationship are, but Dean and Garrett, like, I want to know more, you know? And also, after reading this book, my opinions still stand. Garrett and Dean are my top favorite. Logan is close after that. And while I also love Tucker, his and Sabrina's story, yet again, my least favorite out of all 4 of them. I don't know what L. Kennedy have against them. Like, their stories in particular in this felt very unrealistic. Didn't enjoy that part in the book. I don't feel their connection with each other. I don't feel their love, to be honest. And even after 3 years, they still have trouble communicating their feelings and be honest with each other. There's like one of their main issues in their book. Even years after that, they don't learn whatsoever. Also, we also get another kind of like Pablo's storyline in Connor's book, yet another weird funny character called Alexander. Elle used this character more effectively than Pablo was. Not only he appeared a couple of times within the book, but he's also kind of like the thread that connects every single couple within the book. It's just so hilarious. Overall, I still really like it. It was such a fast and easy read. I give this book a solid 4 stars. Let's get into probably my favorite book of the year, my favorite series probably of all time, the Ravenhood series. So the Ravenhood series includes Flock, Exodus, and The Finish Line. It's a trilogy, supposed to be a duology, but the author Kate Stewart ended up writing the 3rd book, which I'm so glad she did. I don't want to spoil anything for you. This is one of those books that you don't want to know much about before getting into it. Even the synopsis of the book are very much cryptic, and the storyline itself filled with a lot of cryptic things. Especially the 1st book, you spend the whole entire book confused because you don't know what's going on. Even the main character don't know what's going on. You are in the same boat as her, trying to figure out what happens, what are these people are up to in this place called Triple Falls. I've seen a review from a booktuber that I just found because of this series. I forget her name, I'm so sorry, because I just found her channel, but this is her. She described this series perfectly. The first book is basically the introduction to the series and the relationships and the characters. You will feel confused till the ending. Like, I fell in love with the characters and all the relationships in it. I feel so attached. It's angsty, but the second book, whew, it's an explosion of a lot of emotions. A lot of crazy things happen one after the other. It never stops. It's crazy. Unlike any other series where your understanding of the story goes like this, you won't understand what happens in the second book if you don't read the first one. But in this one, you won't understand at all what happens in the first one if you don't read the second book. But the third book, where the healing process began, we get so much more information about all the other characters' backstory, why they are the way they are, why they did what they did. You'll also know more about what happens in the second book. In the first two books, you only get one point of view from the main female character, but in the third one, you get multiple different perspectives. It also moves through different timeline. Like, everything just makes sense in the third one, and you experience a lot of healing. Not just you, but also all the characters. Even with all the hurt that you experience in the second book, you finally feel like you can let everything go and you're happy with the way things are, even though I still remember how much it hurt. Honestly, I have never experienced such intense emotion as I did within this book in any other book I've ever read before. Like, I still remember how much it hurts reading those specific moments in the second book. I cried so many times within these books, and that rarely happens, even though I'm quite an emotional person, especially when I watch movies, when I listen to music and all of that. Like, sounds really did things for me. But when I read, I shed some like tiny tears here and there when I read emotional books before, but this book just made me feel things like no other. I actually felt physical pain. It truly broke my heart. I got angry, I got sad, heartbroken, I felt betrayed, mistreated, I felt happy, I felt a lot of different crazy contradictory emotions all at once within this whole entire series. I read the whole entire series in a week, maybe even less, because I just could not put this book down. Couldn't really do anything. Basically, if I can read a book for the first time all over again, I think this book will be in the top of my list. So, of course, I gave this whole entire series 5 stars. Each of these books, I gave them all 5 stars. So, next book I've read is yet again another great book. It's 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. I don't know why I decided to get into this book right after such an intense, emotionally, physically draining book. This book is one of Steph Bower's favorite ever. She gave this book 5 stars. She raved about this quite a lot. I've also heard a couple of other booktubers mention this book and love this. One thing they always say is it's an emotional and very, very sad book. For some reason, I didn't really believe that because of the cover. I thought this will be a very lovely, cute romance story. It's young adult. Young adult romance is quite tricky for me. I don't mind reading young adult fantasy books, but with romance specifically, a lot of the times I have trouble connecting with them as I'm not a young adult anymore. A lot of the things that happen in young adult romance is usually quite cringy for my taste. Like, no, why are you doing that? You should know better, but then they don't know better. So like, I usually can be quite critical with young adult romance, but this book, I love this book so much. It's a story about a childhood friends to lover. It also involves a second chance kind of love. It's not hard to fall in love with them and their relationship. I got attached instantly. I felt it since the very first few pages. We don't get to read a lot about them growing up, but for some reason, you just feel their connection. The main character, Poppy and Rune Christiansen, they've been friends since they were 5 years old. He just moved to Georgia from Oslo. They are next door neighbor, and Poppy is a very outgoing, excited, happy, positive, adventurous kid, and she introduced herself to Rune, asked him to join her in her adventure, and Rune, being a very shy, more quiet, moody, quite brooding, more introvert than her, he immediately likes Poppy's eagerness and enthusiasm. They instantly become best friends ever since. And when they are 8 years old, Poppy's grandma passed away, but before that, she left Poppy with a new adventure. She left her with a jar full of papers to fill in with memories of kisses from a boy she loves, kisses that make her heart sore. And Rune immediately just got angry, and he doesn't want anyone to be with Poppy. He said, "No, I'm the only boy who can give you those kisses." And since then, they've been filling the jar and never leave each other's side. Basically, they spend every single day with each other until one day when they were 15, Rune found out that his dad has to move back to Oslo for his job, and this angered Rune to no end. She doesn't want to leave Poppy. Forced to do so, Poppy and Rune made promise to each other that what they have is forever. Rune will be back, but the separation was very, very hard. Rune turned very, very bitter and resented his parents, and things got even worse. One day, out of the blue, he never heard from Poppy again. She didn't answer his call, didn't reply his messages and emails. Her and her family moved from Georgia with no news, and basically they just disappeared. Until 2 years later, she finally moved back to Georgia, and not long after, like 2 weeks after that, Rune also moved back to his old house. So with their new strained relationship and basically strangers now, they have to find a way to be in each other's life again. Also, Rune is just trying to figure out the reason why Poppy disappeared from Rune's life, and the reason why she did is very, very heartbreaking. And since that point onward, it's just very, very sad. The quote that sums it all up: "He finds that the greatest heartache is yet to come." Since this is YA, naturally there's not a lot of steamy, intimate scenes in this book, but I personally thought that this book has one of the most intimate relationship I've ever read, just through the sheer connection that they have with each other. And the writing in this book is indeed very YA. Some stuff, actions, and conversations in it can be a little bit too young for me and a little bit cheesy at times, but the core of the book itself, the story, the relationship is just incredible. I think this is one of the most beautiful yet heart-wrenching, bittersweet story I've ever read. My heart was clenched the entire read, but also burst with so much love and affection. I've cried multiple times, but specifically the last few chapters of the book, literally the end of me. Like, I couldn't stop crying. And like I said, I'm not a crier when I read, but in this book, I couldn't stop crying. Like, sobbed. There's something I like and I don't like about the ending, but after all, really like it still. This book is as special can be, and I love this book for infinity, forever, always. 5 stars from me, for sure. Next is another book from Penelope Douglas, which is Punk 57. This is actually the first book from her that really piqued my interest, mainly by the cover, but I also heard a lot of great things about it from a couple different booktubers that I love. I personally actually really like Birthday Girl a little bit more than this. I don't know if it's maybe because I've read such intense, crazy, emotional books that I ended up really loving before this, that when I got to this one, it was a little bit of a letdown. I had such high hopes for this, but it wasn't really met my expectation that I have. I still really like them, don't get me wrong, but I feel like if I read this book any other time in March or April or something, I might like this a little bit more. I feel like I keep comparing this book to Birthday Girl, Ravenhood series, 1,000 Boy Kisses, and all that. This felt a lot more tame in comparison. Not tame in terms of the stories, but in terms of how it made me feel. This has a trope of hate to love, kind of, childhood best friends to lover, angsty romance with a bit of a mystery and twist at the end. This is about our two main characters, Ryan and Misha, who got assigned as pen pal when they were in 4th or 5th grade or something by their teacher, but they got mistaken by their teacher. Ryan's teacher thought Misha is a girl, and Misha's teacher thought Ryan is a boy. They're from different school in neighboring city. They hated it at first because they're supposed to be pen pals with, boys and boys, girls and girls and all that, but they ended up soon really liking each other's company. They kept sending letters to each other. Even after 7 years, they told each other secrets. They become their truest self in their letters, always been there for each other, even though they haven't met in real life, because they've made a pact and promised each other to never seek each other out in real life. They're not even allowed to follow each other on social media, no phone numbers, no photos. They're just scared that if they see each other, it will change their dynamic, this special connection that they have. But one night they ended up in the same party or event. Misha actually found out that Ryan is in there. He goes to talk to her without her knowing that it is him, but Misha was shocked to see that Ryan is actually not at all like how he envisioned her to be. They always talk about how much they hated the mean popular girl in their school, and turns out Ryan is exactly that. Not at all the sweet, quirky, innocent girl that she is in her letters. Ryan is basically the mean girl in her school, and Misha just hates that. He hates who she is in person, and he also just hates her for lying to him all these years by pretending to be someone she's not. But that night, one horrible thing happened in Misha's life, and Misha ended up didn't send Ryan any letter for 3 months. He just disappeared. After that, there's a new kid in Ryan's school named Mason Lauren who hates her guts, super mean to her. But what she didn't know is that Mason is actually Misha. He pretends to be someone else, go into her school with a fake identity, with a secret agenda of his own that we didn't know what yet. There's also this new mysterious person in school who's been vandalizing school property, spray painting these mysterious messages, who name themselves as punk. So like a lot of storyline intertwined here all at once, which I really like. I thought the storyline itself is kind of uniquely complex. It's not just a simple hate to love romance stories with good moral heroines. Ryan was a bitch, and it was very easy to hate on her. And Misha was great at first, but when he became Mason, he treated Ryan like really badly, and I hated the way he treated her then. But they just have a very complex dynamic. You want to hate them as a couple, but you also want to root for them because you know the connection that they have. When they were just pen pals, they were clearly in love. Overall, I still really like it and enjoy the storyline and the progression of not only their relationship but also their character as a person, especially Ryan. I just love seeing her growth. I think it's admirable and quite relatable in some ways, especially for a lot of teenagers growing up in school, not knowing what their place, wanting to be seen, who didn't feel like they belong while trying to figure out who they are as a person and who they want to be growing up. But the other plot about the punk person and the reason why Misha is in this school as Mason is, I think, quite predictable. Very early on the book, I already have my suspicion, and it turns out to be right. But thankfully that's not the main plot of the book, because if it is, I would be very disappointed. Nonetheless, the romance is the main focal point of the book, and I quite like it, and I give this book a 4.2 stars. The last 2 books I've read in February is the Dreamland Billionaire series by Lauren Asher. The first book, The Fine Print, and the second book, Terms and Conditions, which just got released a couple days or a couple weeks ago. I actually haven't finished Terms and Conditions yet. When I'm filming this, it's the last day of February, the 28th, and I'm a couple chapters left in the book, so I'm pretty sure I will be able to finish this tonight. So I'm just going to include this in this February wrap-up. But yeah, this series is about Dreamland billionaires. Basically, Dreamland is kind of like Disney. Dreamland, Disneyland, they also have some streaming services. They're a multi-billion-dollar company owned by this guy named Grady or Brady Kane. He has 3 grandsons, and he just passed away. He left an inheritance for all 3 grandsons, but he left a condition for each and every single one of them, things that they need to do and need to accomplish to be able to get their inheritance. The first brother, Declan, need to find someone, get married and have a baby, basically have a family. The second brother, Carl needs to get back with his ex-girlfriend for some reason, and the third brother, Rowan Kane, need to be the director of Dreamland for 6 months and upgrade Dreamland in some way to bring Dreamland to its glory. And all of these are basically the grandfather's way to challenge their grandson in a way that will be beneficial for each of them. So in the first book, we actually get to Rowan Kane's story first, the youngest brother, and in the second one we get the story of Declan, and the third one, which will be out in a couple of months or something, will be about Carl. So each book we basically follow along the storyline of the main characters. The first one, Zahra and Rowan Kane. Second one, Iris and Declan, while also follow them trying to finish each of their tasks, which I found very interesting. I didn't know going into this series, but why is this book actually really funny, and it's also just super easy to fall in love with the main characters. In both books, the main guy, Rowan Kane and Declan, is I think quite similar. They both very grumpy, cold, only focus themselves on their work. They don't have time for relationships, can be quite mean at times, but Declan is like 2 times worse than Rowan. The two main female character is quite different. Zahra is more happy, upbeat, kind. Iris is Declan's assistant, who are probably one of the only person who can stand Declan. Both of them include workplace romance. Zahra and Rowan has to work together as a team to make an upgrade for Dreamland, while Rowan actually trying to pretend to be someone else by messaging her. But Declan and Iris' story involve a fake marriage. She wants to help him get his inheritance. What I love the most within these two books is how diverse the characters in these books are. Not only the main characters, but all the side characters as well. We get representation of different races, different disabilities, and mental health issues, dyslexia, ADHD, which make me love the book even more. And also, each and every single character in this have their own unique quirks about them. It's not just a broad characterization and description. The main female characters especially have their own specific things that make them unique. But one of the things that I don't like about this book, though, they tend to use the same sentences to describe certain things, especially during some steamy scenes. Every time it happened, just felt a bit repetitive. I mean, I personally think those scenes are not the strongest aspect of the book anyway, but rather than keep doing it in a repetitive way, why not just cut 1 or 2 of them, in my opinion. So yeah, but that's just like a very minor issue. Overall, I really like it. I cannot wait to read the third book, which is about Carl, which I think will be even more interesting to read because Carl is a very different character compared to Rowan and Declan. So I'm excited to see what his story is going to be like. And so far, I gave these 2 books both 4.2 or 4.5 stars, I think. And that's it. Those are 12 books that I've managed to finish in February, which is just crazy. And the fact that not only I read 12 books, but I genuinely like every single book I've read in February is just a huge plus, which made me even more excited to get into March because I'm still very much in a great mood for reading. And please let me know in the comment section down below all the books you've read in February. Which one is your favorite? Do you have a great reading month? I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you do like it, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and thank you so much for watching. I hope I can see you in another video. Bye guys.